My last video was a massive project that took more than 300 hours. I started with nothing, just one life and a dream, to build something spectacular. In the beginning, I was excited about some potatoes and leather armor, and found a village that would become my home. By the end, I had full netherite, enchants, an XP farm that almost killed me, and this. Now, I'm starting my biggest project ever, and building the Earth to go with the moon. This took over 80 gameplay hours to gather materials, design, and ultimately build. It's going to be quite the journey, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Coming back for the first time in months, I took a moment to look around and marvel at the progress I'd made. This did not last long, as I had to clean up my mess from before. Thanks, past me. No problem, future me. With everything nice and tidy, it was time to gather materials. The Earth is big, really big, and roughly 3 times the radius of the moon. So, naturally, I made it 3 times bigger in my design. I want these projects to resemble a real scale, which is possible in these early builds, but will definitely not be later. Anyway, with a 91 block radius, 182 block diameter, carry the 1, and the Earth is going to take over 87,000 blocks. That's more than 6 times bigger than the moon. These blocks range from easy items like 116 obsidian and 246 stone, to more challenging items like 151 skulk, nearly 4,000 terracotta, and over 9,000 wool. With a build this large, there was no time to waste. Remember the sheep from the last video? These sheep would be crucial for progression later. Well, they're getting an upgrade. One of the first things I did was expand the sheep pens and dye them with the correct colors. They got a ton of new space, and I was sure this would be more than enough. The sheep were loving their new home, and while they got comfortable, I gathered the easy materials. Don't let it fool you though, easy is relative. This process still took over 4 hours. To kick things off, I went for round 3 against a nearby forest, putting up an impressive 3 for 3 record and collecting all the stripped birch and oak wood I needed. Having struck fear in the hearts of all Minecraft trees, I fed the sheep, which made even more sheep, then turned my attention to brown mushroom blocks. Using bone meal from the skeleton farm and brown mushrooms from the nether, I could create infinite mushroom. I needed a way to farm these mushrooms though. Since I only had soak touch, I couldn't just use my axe to break the blocks. That meant I had 2 options: farm a ton of mushrooms from the nether, or create a new axe and imbue it with magic to become a mushroom murdering maniac.
Here's Johnny!
I decided to go with the latter. With my shiny new axe, cutting through mushrooms was a breeze. Before I knew it, I had collected all the blocks, and could move on to some of the more grindy items. Next on the list was sandstone. This time, unlike with the mangrove swamp, I remembered to use chunk base, and started heading towards the nearest desert to collect 2,000 sandstone. As a bonus, there was a coral reef on the way, which I destroyed. But hey, that's another item down. My flight arrived in the desert shortly after. I made 2 huge mistakes here that will have everyone cringing, but you'll see that in just a moment. With my shulker boxes full of 2,000 sand, I flew to a nearby badlands biome to collect the red sand. It's just like regular sand, but red. On the way back to the base, I made a pit stop in the end for obsidian. There's not much to say about this. I just mined obsidian for 10 minutes. When I got back home, I was feeling good about myself. Progress was zooming, and things were getting knocked out left and right. I gathered my sand to craft, excited to complete 4 more items on my list, and that's when I realized what everyone else already knew. 4 sand does not make 4 sandstone. This meant that instead of 2,000 sandstone, I only had 500. What a mistake! To make things worse, I had done the same thing with the red sand, and the desert was over 8,000 blocks away. I decided not to fix this issue right away, mostly because I was mad, and instead took out my frustrations on some endermen, repairing all my tools. Not wanting to fly another 16,000 blocks, I got even more obsidian while I was in the end. That way, I could make portals and cut my travel time to basically nothing. After that, the sheep got their rations, and I organized all my shulker boxes in the moon. I couldn't avoid the sand forever though, so it was time to get started again. Back in the desert, my shovel was mowing through some sand. Now, the professionals among you will have already realized what my second mistake was, but for everyone else, allow me to explain. I need sandstone, not sand. And as we all know, sand can be crafted into sandstone. So, I need to dig up thousands of sand, right? Wrong. Conveniently, sandstone also spawns in the desert, and you can mine it instantly with efficiency 5. Essentially, I was getting 4 times more blocks than I needed to, and only realized this because I accidentally switched to my pickaxe. Wait a minute, am I stupid? Oh my god, I could have just been mining the straight sandstone this whole time? Oh, it took me this long to think of this? Come on. Yep, I'm a dumbass. You may have noticed my mic sounded different in those clips. Well, that's because I stream these videos live, right here on YouTube and on Twitch. If you're interested in laughing at me when I do these dumb things, or just want to see more of what goes into the making of these projects, consider subscribing or following so you can catch the next stream. With this new strategy, I was able to zoom through the rest of the sandstone. I had to mine red sand still, but since I needed a lot less, that didn't take long either. Back home, with everything I actually needed this time, I started smelting the sandstone into smooth sandstone and crafting the cut sandstone. I promise I'm almost done talking about sandstone. Since I already had the red sandstone, I just had to wait for the smooth red sandstone. As my furnaces finished up, I was finally able to check off 4 more items. So far, I've gathered 10 items out of 33. Let's recap quickly what I've collected. So, we have 246 stone, 638 strip birch, 717 stripped oak, 1,301 brown mushroom blocks, 191 tube coral, 116 obsidian, 1,362 smooth sandstone, 348 cut sandstone, 133 red sandstone, and 811 smooth red sandstone for a grand total of 5,863 blocks. Did I just nail that first take? Yes I did. Thank you. That may sound like a lot, but it's less than 7% of the total build. 6.7068% to be exact. And that took 4 hours. With all that out of the way, I had to expand the sheep pens again. I really don't know why I thought this would be enough for 9,000 wool, but here we are. Now that the sheep were getting even more comfortable, I put all my shulkers in the moon, discovering a wandering trader that was risking it all. I mean, he's barely hanging on there. Trader shenanigans aside, now that I had most of the easy materials, it was time to set my sights on 3 farms that would be crucial for the harder materials. The first of which was the iron farm, since I needed iron for basically everything. Anyone that knows how to make an iron farm understands what must be done. I started by kidnapping 12 villagers and carting them to their new forever home. It would be a lovely establishment with 5-star meals, unlimited entertainment, and I'm just kidding, it was a hole in the ground with a zombie to keep them permanently terrified. The reason for this is that golems will spawn faster if the villagers are scared, so I can torture the villagers and
trap the golems so they burn alive and then collect their corpses for that sweet iron.
That sounds really dark when you say it out loud. Anyway, the villagers were settled, the zombies moved in shortly after, and the golems were spawning. Just not where they were supposed to, so I did some spawn proofing. All that was left now was to go and do some other things while the iron farmed itself. First things first, we need a cactus farm and a cocoa bean farm for dye. I need these for the different terracotta colors, like green, cyan, brown, and lime. I found out later I didn't need brown as it naturally spawns, but I'm sure I can use the cocoa beans for something in the future. These farms were brain dead easy to build, and in like 2 seconds, they were done.
2 seconds later.
I also built a much bigger wheat farm to grow my sheep empire, my sheepire, if you will. But with all that wheat, I gave the sheep some more rations, growing their numbers even further, until soon, the entire world would be sheep. Since the farms by the base were at an all-time high, I went back to the iron farm to see how it was doing. When I got there, I was surprised to find, drumroll please, like 10 iron. Basically, the golems were not spawning in the death trap, and who can blame them really? So I did some more spawn proofing to force them into their untimely demise. This is probably evil, but if it prints iron, then it might just be worth it. While I waited to see if that worked, it was time to tear up some terracotta. See what I did there? Anyway, I deleted some more endermen, mined up my beacon, and headed to the nearest Badlands biome. When I arrived, I slapped that beacon down and started tearing through some terracotta. It's funnier the second time, right? I found out here that brown terracotta naturally spawns, and mined it without my beacon for some reason. This really made me question my life choices. Why am I here? Should one man really build the solar system? What even is the solar system? I live in a cube. What is with all these spheres? Do the golems deserve their fate? Who the hell is Steve? Hey man, don't question it. Just tear up that terracotta. Thanks, I really needed that. Wait a second. That's the 3rd time you made that joke. Reinvigorated by a mysterious, encouraging voice, I began mining the thousands of blocks. This did not take long, and just like that, I had all the terracotta in my cart. Well, all except for cyan and the greens, which I needed cactus for. Thankfully, I got extra regular terracotta, and just had to wait for my cactus to grow to finish that off. In the meantime, I celebrated my success by shearing a whole bunch of sheep. The wool was actually starting to get close to done, and at this rate, I would have all the materials in just a few more hours. Or so I thought. There would be one material that would prove to be ridiculously time consuming and would take over 20 hours alone. That's a problem for later though. At this point, I decided to check back on the iron farm, where golems were still spawning outside the certain death zone. This is not appreciated. So I had a slab party. These golems will give me their iron or experience permanent painful perishing provided by my power 5 bow. Anyway, even though it wasn't a lot, there was some iron here, which was enough to make a gravity block duplicator, and that's exactly what I did next. Using the end portal, some pistons, and funky redstone magic, you can duplicate gravity blocks like never before. This of course includes concrete powder, which is what I needed it for. This duper is highly important to this build. Without it, getting the concrete would easily take 5 to 6 times as long. Even with the duper, it would take around 5 hours, so there was no way I was doing this without it. Besides, all of my future builds would use at least some concrete, so this thing would pay dividends. Alright, to build this, we need to get rid of some bedrock. But how do you do that? Bedrock is indestructible, and without creative, there's no way to break it. Oh no. That's just what Big Bedrock wants you to think. By using pistons, some redstone, and abusing keybinds, you too can delete bedrock. I honestly have no idea how or why this works, but it does, and it makes my life easier, so no complaints here. With the bedrock out of the way, literally, I built the gravity duper. In the wrong spot. Yep, that's everything. So now, I turn this on. Oh, are you kidding? Oh, I built it in the wrong spot. So I tore the whole thing down and rebuilt it. In the wrong spot again.
You serious?
And that should be it. Yep, that's it. And then, does it work? Nope. After consulting the creative world to see what was wrong with my brain, I rebuilt it again. The third try was the charm, and it was pumping out tons of concrete powder. All that was left was to see where the blocks came out and build the concrete converter. Blocks that fall through the end portal go to spawn, which is right next to where I built the iron farm. Luckily, the iron farm was not in the way of the concrete converter, which I'll now be calling the CC. I left the end and headed to spawn, where I was jumped by 2 very angry endermen. They must have been trying to avenge their comrades who died in the XP farm, because I had to book an emergency flight out of there. When my flight landed, I sent those endermen to the afterlife, triangulated exactly where the blocks from the duper came out, and built the CC. I'll save you the time of watching this. It was super boring, but I built it first try, no mistakes. I couldn't build this first try, but somehow absolutely ace this. Yeah, I don't get it either. With both pieces of the concrete puzzle built, it was time to give it a test. Back in the end, I got the duper running smoothly. I went through the portal to run the CC, and it didn't work. Turns out, I broke a piece of redstone accidentally, which moved the TNT to the wrong spot. Luckily, it didn't blow everything sky high. And like an absolute genius, I was able to figure out the problem. This time, everything worked with no issues. Everything seems to be working correctly. And I was 3 steps closer to having all the materials I needed. Of course, I still had to collect the skulk, the rest of the wool and terracotta, all of the concrete, the lapis blocks, and build the whole earth. But just, let me have this one, man. Since I was already bored, it was time to go to a deep dark. Unlike in my previous video,
Previously.
I spent almost 15 days looking for a mangrove swamp until I remembered chunk base existed. Not my proudest moment. I remember chunk base, which was a huge W. Some creepers volunteered to give me gunpowder for my illegal fireworks, and I made the journey to the nearest ancient city. I'll be honest, being in the city for the first time had me quaking in my boots. The warden absolutely terrifies me. I couldn't let fear deter me though, because this skulk wouldn't collect itself, and I was super brave about the entire thing. I promise. Oh! I'm pausing the music for this. Stop making noises. I hate when they make noises. Because they scare me. I've actually never even fought a warden, so that scares me even more. You scare me too. I'm getting rid of you too. Well, I guess I haven't been through there either, but it's really this hat. Oh, okay. We're good. I'm still terrified. Hey, don't look at that. I was brave. Just trust me on this. Needless to say, this guy could run my pockets effortlessly, and I was not down for that. The goal of this adventure was to not even see him, so after I mined the skulk I needed, I didn't leave. Yep, you heard that right. I wanted to get Swift Sneak while I was there, and made the decision to tempt fate by sticking around. I only found Swift Sneak 2, and after setting off a third Shrieker, it was time for a tactical retreat. Time to hit the dash. Time to hit the dash. Time to go. Time to go. Time to go. Time to go. Safe and sound back at base, I bred the sheep again. At this point, I only needed a few more stacks of wool, so we just had to wait. While I was waiting for that, I gathered the dye I needed to finish off the terracotta and got all of it knocked out. With the wool basically done, that left all the concrete and lapis blocks. I figured the concrete would be more time consuming, so I opted to work on the lapis first. I could not have been more wrong.
Naked grandma!
This is when I started realizing how much I underestimated the grind. It seems obvious in hindsight, but collecting 33,642 lapis takes a ton of time. Even if every lapis ore dropped the max amount of 32, I would have to mine 1,052 ores. At first, I thought I could trade for it instead, but it became clear quickly this was not a good strategy because they trade 1 emerald for, drumroll please, 3 lapis. I don't know about you, but gathering 11,214 emeralds did not sound appealing. That left me with only one option, mine lapis by hand. I naively thought I could do this in a few hours,
4 hours later.
but it took over 20 hours to collect it all. For reference, up to this point, it had taken only 12 hours to collect all of the other materials. 20 brutal hours of mining later, it was done. So yeah, that was an absolute nightmare. I wanted to make a time lapse of the mining, but even at 10,000% speed, it would have been over 10 minutes long. So enjoy this brief montage instead. With only the concrete left to get, it was just a matter of AFKing the duper and converter. I already did most of the concrete conversion in between lapis sessions, you know, to preserve some of my sanity. And was able to finish the rest of the concrete pretty quickly. This meant that I was finally done with all of the materials. So let's recap everything that had to be collected before this build could even begin. 116 obsidian, 246 stone, 191 tube coral, 151 skulk, 4,633 different terracotta, 638 strip birch, 717 stripped oak, 9,063 different wools, 1,301 brown mushroom, 133 red sandstone, 811 smooth red sandstone, 348 cut sandstone, 1,362 smooth sandstone, 3,738 lapis, and to top it all off, 63,160 various concretes. For those curious, here's the material list in its entirety, and the grand total number of blocks needed was 86,878. Now that the hard part was done? What do you mean that wasn't the hard part? You realize it took me 32 hours to collect this, right? 50 more hours to build? Over 13 hours in one stream? You can't be serious. Fuck. This is unfortunately accurate. It took 50 hours to build the earth, and I really did stream for over 13 hours to finish it off. The live was so long that YouTube cut it down to just 12, but I have the raw footage to prove it. This is my raw footage bin, and right here's the last stream of building the earth, and 13 hours and 9 minutes, 55 seconds. Before I could start building, I had to pick a spot, so I positioned the earth next to the moon, and then I had to do some prep work, and who am I kidding? You don't care about that. You just want to see some cool cinematics, right? Okay, well here it is, the culmination of my suffering. That was pretty cool. Would have been better if I remembered to record the flashback footage more than half the time. It's satisfying what— oh! I realized I forgot to start this. Fuck! I forgot to record. Oh my god, I forgot to start my flashback recording. Again, I always forget to start my flashback recording. Fuck! I forgot to do the flashback recording! Dude, open flashback again? Lifesaver, dude. I actually forgot. Oh, also, I popped 2 totems during this build, so good thing I got those. Anyway, how do I end a video? This was a blast to make. I hope it was better than the last one. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Check out the Twitch to see me do ridiculous things live. I do a lot of challenges there and play all kinds of games, so that could be interesting. Comment Sponge God if you made it this far. Confuse some people. That could be funny maybe. I don't know. Thanks again, and also enjoy these bloopers. Okay, bye! 246 stone, which is possible in these early builds. 4 hours. To get they got a ton of new then turned my attention to brown mushroom rocks. This time, wait, what was the biome? I lost my place in the script. I flew to a nearby Badlands biome to collect the rest. Damn it. I remember to use chunk base and started heading towards— I got a notification and we lost the plot, boys. 1,000 sandstone? I only had 4. Now, the professionals among you will have— fuck. Yep, I'm a dumbass. Don't like that. Mind up my beacon, and— oh, man. We lost the plot. Whole bunch of sheep. Gravity block duplicator. Duplicator. Which is that's just what big bet. These bones will give me their iron or experiment. I gathered to die, but it became— Dude, you actually watched all the bloopers? What a mad lad. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you enjoyed.